Today, the blockbuster Watchdog report on the FBI's handling of the Clinton email probe to be released.
We are looking for unlawful activity, and we're looking for serious errors of judgment.
Terror attack foiled in Germany. Prosecutors say a Tunisian man made the deadly poison ricin and was plotting a biological weapon attack.
Senator Cory Booker, who wants to run for president, has an interesting message for Americans.
I'm telling you right now, if this country hasn't broken your heart, you don't love her enough. If you're not deeply disturbed by what's coming, you got to check your own love.
There's going to be a big birthday party in D.C. today because it's the president's birthday.
There's a real good possibility he's going to be here at the game at Nationals Park at 7:05.
The congressional baseball team will take the field tonight exactly 1 year after the shooting that nearly killed Steve Scalise.
I closed that chapter a long time ago, and luckily I've been able to focus on all the good.
1, 2, 3, win!
Well, guess what? Someone put him in, Coach. He is actually in the cage.
Look at that.
And there's some congressional leader that cannot get their swings in because Steve insists on playing for us.
Steve, we need that right elbow up.
And by the way,
where was this guy? Why wasn't he in my picture? Hey, wait. It's Rand Paul. Rand, how are you?
Good job.
It's like you're out of here.
how many times is he going to knock into you today?
Are we on the air?
We are on the air right now. How was that?
I'd say pretty mediocre.
Thank you very much. All right, Rand Paul, go ahead. Do your batting practice. Okay, so 7:05 tonight, Ainsley and Brian, the Republicans and the Democrats will take the field here 1 year after, famously, a crazed gunman just a couple of miles from where we're standing came out and tried to kill as many Republicans as he possibly could. It is a very emotional day. Steve Scalise, a lot of people didn't think would survive that day. He did. He was with us 30 minutes ago, and he is ready. But it's also about the fun of the game and the fun of politics. I know politics is so toxic so often these days, but this is a time when the Republicans and Democrats can get together and have fun and see how far they can hit it at that great big wall.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Steve Doocy.
You did a great job.
Yeah, exclusively from the field. He just had Steve Scalise before, who a year ago was struggling for his life, and now he's working his way through rehab to be able to walk on his own. And he's doing great.
Yeah. That's right. We have another special guest with us. We have Donald Trump Jr., the executive vice president of the Trump Organization and son of President Donald Trump. Thanks for being with us.
Good to be with you guys.
So when the president goes to the White House, do you get a promotion? Are you still executive vice president?
I don't know. I should probably upgrade myself now, right? I should give myself a really big raise, too.
But you can't even ask him if you can get a raise.
No, I can't. I just got to do it. Right. Eric and I can agree to each other's raises. I think it'll work out well.
I remember interviewing your mom, and she said, my kids always said, Mom, I want to get paid more money. I want to get paid more money because it was at the golf course. She said, finally, you sat her down one day and you said, Mom, I would like a raise. And she said, okay. And you said, I've been complaining about the amount you're paying me all these years. Why are you giving me a raise now? And she said, because you asked.
Yeah, well, I got that one from my father as well. Learn the hard way sometimes. And you have to go out there and get it yourself.
We asked for the IG report. Look how I get become the serious one here all of a sudden. We asked for the IG report. It's coming out today. We have talked about all morning long what we're expecting. It's going to be an indictment, not an actual one, but a metaphysical one of the Clinton email scandal.
Yes.
What are you expecting?
Listen, I sort of look at what I've seen from the outside bureaucracy. I sort of look at them as HR for a big corporation. I mean, they're not there for the little guy. They're there to protect the big corporation. So I imagine it will be one of those things that both sides will look at and be like, see, I told you so. I'm hoping it's good because what's going on is a disgrace. When you see the things that we've seen at our government, if you saw those things happening in, banana republics, you'd say that's terrible. But when they're happening actually here in this country, and you notice all the people that were really loud a few weeks ago sort of went away. They're kind of quiet all of a sudden. Because I think they realize that people are onto them. They know what's been going on, and what happened has been really disgusting.
What's going to be hard to do is to marginalize it as a political document. When he was appointed, Michael Horowitz, by President Bush and reaffirmed by President Obama, It looks like politics could be out of this, and a year investigation could be into this. So when they come to their conclusion and present their case, Comey, McCabe, Peter Strzok, Lisa Page, and maybe Bruce Orr, according to some of these unredacted things that have been released now, could have their credibility questioned. What does that mean in the big picture?
Well, listen, I think if you want to question their credibility, they've done enough of that on their own. I mean, just look at the double talk, all the things that they've said, all the things they've lied about. I mean, it's right out there. I mean, these are public statements that they've made. So, I think their credibility is shot, and it's a shame to see that happen to some of these great institutions like the FBI, where the guys on the ground, the boots, the guys actually doing the real work are incredible people. They're hardworking, loyal, patriotic Americans. The problem is the lawyers at the top, the guys that have never carried a gun, that are just pure bureaucrats. They've really put a blight on those institutions, and it's a shame, and hopefully we can get them some credibility back eventually.
There's an old saying, it all comes out in the wash, and hopefully we'll find some answers if there was mishandling of information in this investigation. Thanks to the executives in the Obama administration, hopefully it'll all come to light. And
I'd like to see it, but as you can imagine, I've become a cynic after what I've seen over the last couple of years.
The Robert Mueller investigation. Robert Mueller's approval is now at 34%. Rudy Giuliani on with Laura Ingraham last night said, we're going to decide in the next couple of weeks whether the president sits down. If your dad asks you what he should do, what would you tell him?
Listen, I don't trust these people as far as I could throw them. I wouldn't sit down with them because, you could sit there and ask questions for 50 hours, for 100 hours, ask the same thing 1,000 times, and that's, the comma's different here. Now we got you. The reality is the greatest investigative bodies in the world have been looking at this for 2 years. 2 years. And they've come up with nothing. By the way, the only thing they've come up is what they themselves were doing to try to set this up. So, I wouldn't do it. I think it'd be stupid. I don't think any proper lawyer would say, hey, you should go do it, because it's not about collusion anymore. It's, can we get him to say something that may be interpreted as somewhat off or inaccurate, and after 50,000 questions, maybe you make a mistake, and that's how we get you. And that's ridiculous. That's not what this is all about. I mean, we're not even talking about Russian collusion with that one anymore, because they've given up on that. It's the constant attempt to try to find something to undermine this president, this duly elected president. And again, for me as an American, and when I'm around, other parts of the country, I mean, people are coming up to me being like, what's going on is disgusting.
You also had that experience with yourself directly.
I did, by the way.
How many hours have you testified in front of Congress?
About 25 hours in front of various congressional bodies, millions in legal fees and all this stuff. The difference is I can weather that storm. Most of these other people on here can't. They're younger people. They're working on a campaign. So they beat them down. They put them in these situations where they're in, and it's just not really fair. It's really
It costs them a lot of money, don't they?
It does. What's nice about it is the mess that I went through was probably the needle in the haystack that created the precipice for all this other discovery that we found out, hey, look at what they're doing.
Right.
It's the other side. It's the Democrats funding these things. It's the Hillary Clinton campaign spending millions of dollars to foreign agents to come up with this nonsense dossier that's still totally unverified. And yet, if you look at some of the other networks, they run around like this thing's the Magna Carta.
Let's get to the big issue of this week prior to today. And of course, that's the North Korea summit. When you saw your dad shaking the hand of Kim Jong-un, there's a picture of it right there for those of you who weren't around this week. What's going through your mind when you see that?
Listen, it's incredible. And, I know the guy. I understand how he works. Even when they sort of pulled out of the summit, I told a couple people, I was like, this is exactly what's going to happen. He's going to play hardball. They're going to come back to the table, and they're going to get this thing done. That's what it is. I mean, he understands how to do these things. And that's why it's so interesting when I watch these government pundits. Oh, my, I have been dealing with this issue for 30 years. Hey, for 30 years, you couldn't get in a room with the guy. You couldn't even have a meeting. I'm not saying he's a nice guy. I'm not saying this, but you have to have this dialogue. I mean, I see the other side. They're almost upset that we're not at nuclear war with North Korea right now because it means that Trump was actually effective. But guess what? What they've been doing for 60 years, since the end of that war, which never really ended, but for 60 years, totally ineffective. So someone comes in, takes a different approach, tries to do something else, actually brings a business mentality to this thing, and guess what? You have more progress in 16 months than they had in 60 years, and yet they continue to knock it. So what he did this week was incredible, and it's textbook Trump. I mean, he knows how to get people on his side. He knows how to breach those gaps, and the gaps are very substantial, but he knows how to do that because he's done it for his entire career.
Well, the left and mainstream media, they had a heyday with that. They wanted to turn it negative, but you can't have it both ways. If you say no war, and then your dad is going over there and taking away nuclear weapons from this dictator, and they're complaining, I really don't understand it. We had Cory Booker was talking about how basically if you aren't deeply disturbed by your father and your father's era, then you need to check your own love. Listen to this, and then we'll get your reaction.
I'm telling you right now, if this country hasn't broken your heart, you don't love her enough. If you're not deeply disturbed by what's coming, you got to check your own love. Some people call it patriotism. That's a fine word, but understand patriotism is love of country, and you cannot love your country unless you love your fellow countrymen and women. Love is struggle. And we know what a great leader, Frederick Douglass, says: if there is no struggle, there is no progress. And so let me tell you to all the faithful here, I'm a big believer. Before you tell me about your religion, first show it to me in how you treat other people.
Very charismatic, but does not like your father. He said at the beginning of that, and I'm not really sure what this means, I'm telling you right now, if this country hasn't broken your heart, you don't love her enough.
Yeah, listen, it's ridiculous. And I think we're used to seeing Cory Booker and the histrionics and everything is drama. And yet, 2 weeks ago, we put forth prison reform legislation that he's been fighting for since the beginning of his career. And all of a sudden, he's against it. Because anything that Trump does, he'll be against it. So something that he's championed, that he's done, all of a sudden he's not for it. And he realizes, I think, that's a mistake. But that's the problem with the other side. If Donald Trump walked across the Hudson River to New Jersey, they'd say Trump can't swim. If he came out for oxygen, they'd be against it. Okay? They'd hold their breath.
So you're just almost
So,
used to it,
it's just, honestly, it's just noise. He looks like he's auditioning to be a televangelist. And, we get that. We've seen the over-drama. We've seen the facial expressions in the hearings. I don't think it plays well with real people in this country. I mean, I get he thinks it probably does, but I think he's a terrible actor.
The Democrats are trying to get a message across and try to find what the right one is, because it's been ineffective so far. And it seems like the president's numbers are going up, and they're higher than President Obama's.
If you're a Democrat, what matrix are you running on? Are you running on jobs? Are you running on the economy? I literally cannot think of a single matrix by which their policies have proven to be successful, and Trump's haven't, because he's winning. That's what he's doing.
Right. I just want you to hear what Bob Corker said yesterday, who was up for Secretary of State, up for a running mate, at times been a critic of the president. Here he is calling out what he told me was leadership yesterday in saying this.
We're in a strange place. I mean, it's almost, it's becoming a cultish thing, isn't it? It's not a good place for any party to end up with a cult-like situation as it relates to a president that happens to be purportedly of the same party.
So he says because no one wants to because leadership doesn't want to buck the president, they're a cult.
Listen, I think that's ridiculous. I think, if it's a cult, it's because they like what my father's doing. You see real Americans actually winning for a change, conservatives actually getting things done. And I saw this. I saw this during DACA when Schumer folded initially. I had multiple congressmen call me, Don, what just happened? I go, what do you mean? What just happened, Don? I go, well, we won. And I quote, we don't win. We give up because the other side calls us a name. They do this. So I think Americans, and I addressed this yesterday on my Twitter to Corker, Americans want to see someone who's actually going to have conviction, not just talk about it, with great sound bites. And then when it comes game time, they sit there and fold. They want someone who's going to be like my father and fight and actually want to win. And how about actually want to win elections?
How do you feel about Adam Schiff saying the other day that if he gets the majority in the House, they're going to investigate Jared and Ivanka?
Yeah, I think it's ridiculous. But, again, Adam Schiff, he's never met a TV camera he didn't love. So he'll be out there, he'll say all these things. It all ends up being nonsense. 99% chance he's the guy leaking all these things. I dealt with him in my testimony. And every time he went to a bathroom break, I get to read about it on CNN 7 hours later when we were out of there. So, that's what it is. The other side, they have a platform of hate and nonsense and nothing else. And I think they're panicking because of it.
Don, your dad's birthday is today, 72.
It is.
What's your message for him?
Well, hopefully he's watching. I imagine he is. But happy birthday, Dad. I love you very much. You're getting absolutely no presents because I figured 5 grandchildren is enough. And when you get the guy, you're good. When you get the most powerful guy in the world, anything's going to be a letdown. So we love you, and I look forward to seeing you soon because I don't get to see him that much anymore. That's the only problem.
Make him real happy. Buy him one of his ties for Father's Day.
I will do that because he doesn't have enough of those.
Don Jr., thanks so much.
More Fox and Friends right after this.
I think we've done something very historic already in one way, but to me, a success is when it gets done.
As President Trump promises a denuclearized North Korea, his Secretary of State Mike Pompeo says that will happen by the end of President Trump's first term. So is this timetable really possible? Here to break it down is Harry Katsianis from the Center for National Interest. Awesome. His insight is also has been fantastic through this entire process. Harry, first time I'm talking to you since the president left Singapore. You think that's the biggest thing, finding out how big this arsenal actually is.
Yeah, Brian. I mean, the big question here is we don't really know the size of North Korea's nuclear infrastructure. We don't really know how many nuclear weapons they have. You know, there's reports in the summertime that they could have as many as 60 nuclear weapons. We really don't know. We don't know how big those nuclear weapons are. Heck, Brian, we don't even know how many nuclear scientists they have working on the program or where the facilities even are. They're very good at hiding them underground. So the first thing the North Koreans need to do is they would need to give us an accounting of all that. And I think that would be a big trust-building measure from the North Koreans.
And the thing is, it can't be like Saddam Hussein, where we send weapons inspectors in and they send stuff out the other door. It can't be like Iran, where we have 21 days notice before we do anything, or cameras, or no access to military sites. It's got to be closer to Ukraine and South Africa. From what you know, are they ready for that type of access?
Well, look, Brian, I hope they are. I mean, what the president has tried to do here is he's made a historic step forward. He's literally reached his hands out and said, look, I am willing to do big things to welcome your country into the international community. And let's face it, he's put up a lot of political capital to do that. And he's taken a lot of flack from his critics who's saying that's a mistake. I think what he's tried to do is open the door to the North Koreans. Now, there's a way to do this that makes sense. A lot of people have criticized a step-by-step approach, but I think what needs to do here is the North Koreans need to sort of make a down payment, offer up 1 to 2 nuclear weapons to, say, the IAEA, and we would drop a little bit of the sanctions. And we can go back and forth, Brian, and build trust, and we can really see if the North Koreans are serious about this.
So we're done with the blowing up the towers that were going to wreck anyway, or the sites that were already destroyed, and not let Western journalists in. It's got to be different. And my sense is the president doesn't usually say things without any substance behind it. He says something could happen right away. What would impress Harry Katsianis to say we're in a place we've never been before right away?
Simple. I think what the North Koreans do is if they want to build trust with us and they want to move forward, I think what they would do is offer up, let's say, 1 to 2 nuclear weapons and 1 ICBM. These are the things that brought us, Brian, to a crisis last summer. We were all talking about nuclear war. I think if they did that, I think that would make a lot of sense and build a lot of trust.
Right. So Mike Pompeo goes to South Korea. Now he's going to China, coming back here, and then back with Bolton to North Korea. This is just the beginning if it's going to work. If it ends here, not good. But if it's just a beginning, I have my fingers crossed. So do you. Harry Katsianis, thanks so much.
Thanks, Brian.
All right, straight ahead. Change gears. One female author says chivalry is dead because of feminism.
I think the idea of sort of holding the door for a woman because she's a woman, I have trouble with it.
Check this out. We're live with a Fox News alert and a live look in outer space. How cool is this? 2 American astronauts now stepping outside the International Space Station for a spacewalk. Commander Drew Feustel and flight engineer Ricky Arnold are installing new HD cameras today. That spacewalk expected to take nearly 7 hours. What an awesome shot.
That is cool.
Yeah, that's Ted, the cameraman. We sent him into space to get that.
He's really tall.
Yeah.
And he does
It
a very
looks like
nice
when you
job.
look at the clouds, you see different images. It looks like rocks on the left, the LaGuardia runway on the right, and some snow.
Just when I thought I mattered, then I saw that shot. All right, 24 minutes after the hour.
Democratic lawmakers shutting down streets outside the U.S. Customs and Border Protection offices, protesting the Trump administration's zero-tolerance policy on illegal immigration.
Also, there was the actor and the Trump critic, John Cusack, who tweeted out the legend Representative John Lewis called for silence at today's action. We obeyed him. As he has true moral authority, we will not obey a governor that tears children away from parents, demonizes, humiliates, and tortures immigrants. We are all immigrants. This is fascism.
Right. That's not accurate, but go ahead. You're an actor. You must know everything. But what does this actually accomplish? Here to weigh in is nationally syndicated radio talk show host Dana Lash. Hey, Dana.
Are you insinuating? Is he insinuating that he was acting, Dana?
Yeah, well, I mean, he must be, and it's good to see you guys. Good morning to you. I'm just curious as to, first off, where was this outrage when you had Democrats that held House and Senate? And that's not putting it off. I mean, immigration was supposed to be one of their top issues, and yet even, let's not forget, during a portion of former President Obama's first term, they held a supermajority. So they could have pretty much run roughshod over any objections that Republicans had, but yet they wasted that opportunity. And where it comes to Cusack's statement that some somehow we're torturing and demonizing immigrants. I would love to see some examples of torturing immigrants. I've been to the border. I've talked to Border Patrol agents. I've met with Border Patrol chiefs. And I was there under previous President Obama, and there were individuals, teenagers and kids, who were actually put in detention facilities. And those pictures, all of the pictures that everyone is sharing now and blaming on this administration, actually took place under the previous administration, and there was no objection by John Cusack then.
And you insulted hundreds of Border Patrol agents who aren't there for the money. They're doing it to protect the country. And I don't think
they're not there for the money, that's for sure.
Yeah, they don't get paid a ton. They have to live right in the area. They don't, there aren't the best schools in the area, but they sacrifice it in order to do it. And now we finally have money to get more. Can we switch gears and talk a little about politics? Senator Bob Corker, sometimes friend, sometimes critic of the president, went to the Senate floor to express his frustration at the party that seems to be firmly behind the president and for leadership who refused, in his words, to buck the president.
We're in a strange place. I mean, it's almost, it's becoming a cultish thing, isn't it? It's not a good place for any party to end up with a cult-like situation as it relates to a president that happens to be purportedly of the same party.
So your reaction, is it cult-like?
Well, who are they supposed to support? Hillary Clinton? I mean, it's kind of shocking to me that anyone would be at all raising an eyebrow over Republicans supporting a Republican agenda from a Republican president in the White House. But further to Corker's point, I have seen plenty of times on this very network, Speaker Paul Ryan strongly disagree with President Trump on a number of issues, including tariffs. I have seen Republican leadership speak out against it. They are behind the president's agenda, but they also will give criticism and try to guide in the right direction the agenda when they see fit.
Ben Sasse,
that's how it works.
Jeff Flake, on a regular basis, what he was expressing. So I asked him this morning, what he was expressing is, I'm frustrated at leadership that will accepting these tariffs, for example, where he doesn't feel as though they had a say in the president's tariffs. My feeling is the president's using it as a wedge in order to get a better deal for the country. He can't be trekking with Congress every time he wants to raise the price of aluminum.
Well, and I think it's a negotiating tactic, and I'm willing to give, because this is what every time I think that the administration does something and the president does something, everyone kind of freaks out about it. I think it's an Overton window approach, and then he walks it back, and we actually arrive at a place that everyone is comfortable with, including members of Congress. North Korea is a perfect example of this, and wherein it concerns tariffs and where it concerns the discussions with Canada and other G7 nations, the president walked into this saying, well, why don't we remove these trade barriers? Let's get to a more free and fair trade area, and the countries that don't want to do that, maybe we'll talk about imposing tariffs. I mean, this is a president that's openly talking about having fair trade, and yet he's the one who's presented as the aggressor, which I do find kind of interesting as a free and fair trade supporter.
Dana, I don't know if you like it when you get on an airplane and a gentleman helps you put your heavy luggage in the upper barrel, or if you like it when a gentleman opens the door for you. But The Daily Show had a guest on who made an interesting point about chivalry. Listen to this.
I think the idea of sort of holding the door for a woman because she's a woman, I have trouble with it. I'm quite happy for people to hold the door for me, but I hope they're not doing it because of this sort of idea of chivalry. Because chivalry is really about the idea that women are somehow weak. Right. And need protecting.
So, Dana, she's the one who wrote the book, A Feminist Manifesto. She said chivalry is dead, feminism killed it, and she's happy about that. What's your reaction?
Well, 2 points. I don't think that she understands quite the concept of chivalry, which was a code of conduct for gentlemen, and also about supporting and empowering women during medieval times. Modern era, I think it's been greatly abused. That's number one. Number two, with all due respect to the speaker, and I'm familiar with her, I think it's a luxury of third wave feminism to complain about holding doors open for people, where her country, Nigeria, it ranks top in the world for female genital mutilation, which I think is far more of a disservice to women and far more suppressive than someone courteously opening the door for someone else.
All right.
Wow.
We'll leave it there. There's really no witty thing that I can say coming out of a female genital mutilation. So with that, Dana Loesch, thank you very much for your insight.
Dana.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now enjoy your Cheerios.
Yeah, there's really nothing you can say.
Right. All right, it's 8:30, and parents are outraged because books on their kids' summer reading list are anti-police.
That's a wild one there. Plus, Steve Doocy live for us at Nationals Park. He was hitting before. Now he's like judging the hitters.
Not exactly, Todd. I was hitting earlier, but look who is in the batting cage right now. That is Steve Scalise. What a year he has had. And the man who is pitching to him is Matt Micah, the lobbyist who nobody thought he would make it out alive, but he did. What a day and what a game and what a hug.
We'll have to answer, 'cause this is my right.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
That is your shot of the morning. Isn't that beautiful? That flag is a 30 by 50 flag representing patriotism out on our plaza. Our Army Band is performing the Star-Spangled Banner in honor of Flag Day.
That giant flag is from Annan. They have been making flags in the U.S. since 1847.
Yeah, we agreed on the Stars and Stripes. This is the anniversary of the flag, so it is being held by some of our veteran Wounded Warriors as well, first responders and members of the Sons of the Revolution. And singing there was MJ Juergens, Emily. She's been on before, and what I don't need to tell you guys, what a voice.
Unreal.
Beautiful. All right, let's bring in Steve Doocy, who is live down in D.C. at Nationals Park ahead of tonight's congressional baseball game. It has been 1 year since the attack on House Majority Whip Steve Scalise and other GOP lawmakers. Steve?
Thank you very much. I'm here with Ron DeSantis. He's a congressman from Florida. He's running for governor down there as well. In the last 15 minutes while we've been sitting here, Congressman, every one of the Republican players has said, you're not playing tonight. You're busy running for the governor.
Running for governor takes up a lot of time. And plus, we only got 4 hits last year. I got 2 of the 4, so they want to get an extra stick in the lineup, I think.
Whoa. Who's shooting over there? And that's your team. That's the Republicans. Just missed us. A year ago today is when the shooting happened, 7 o'clock hour, just a couple miles from where we're sitting. You are an important part of that particular story.
I was playing third base, actually throwing balls to Steve Scalise, and me and the shortstop, Jeff Duncan, we decided to cut out of practice just a few minutes early. So as we were getting into the car to leave, the guy who we now know was the shooter, we obviously didn't know that, they came up to us, asked us whether it was Republicans that were practicing, and we said yes. We pull away, he walks to his van, we now know, takes out the rifle, goes to the third base side of the dugout and starts shooting. And so had Jeff and I stayed out there, we would have probably been first ones in the line of fire.
I remember a year ago, and we had heard your account. That was a weird thing to ask.
As soon as we got word that there was a shooting, Jeff and I connected. We're like, we've got to report this guy.
It was that guy.
Yeah, no, and sure enough, it was. And this guy, and turns out he had a list of names in his pocket, 5 Republican congressmen. Jeff Duncan was one of the names, and he had him point blank range right there. So it was really chilling experience.
And then they played the game, famously without Steve Scalise, who is back tonight. He's going to start at second base. Very emotional a year ago. Shocking that you could even go back out there after what happened.
Well, Steve is really a warrior. I mean, for him to fight back with all the surgeries, I mean, most people probably would have died there. And I think that's really a testament to Steve's, fighting spirit. But there's a lot of groundswell support for him. And, he really is an inspiration to people in the Congress now.
And now, 1 year later, last year they raised about $1 million. They had close to 28,000 people in the stands. This has become a big deal. They want to see, not everybody's a good player. You're a very good player, but it's just all about fun. And that's something you don't see much in Washington these
No,
days.
exactly. And then to have 28,000 people, we outdrew a lot of major league teams that day. Now, the product that fans saw was not up to snuff, but still.
Yeah. Today, there's a possibility the president could actually be in attendance. Today is his birthday. Something else happening in the news, the big IG report is coming out, where the inspector general is going to let everybody know what he observed. What are your concerns?
I want to see Comey, McCabe, Strzok, the lot of them held accountable. I want the IG to nail them for their misconduct, and I would like to see some of their conduct referred criminally for leaking, for lack of candor to Congress, for things that Peter Strzok did. But I think one big upshot of this, because I think Comey is going to get hammered, is how could you still have a special counsel involving obstruction for firing Comey? The IG report's going to say Comey had no business being the FBI director. It's also going to say he'd be a terrible witness in any type of thing.
Sure.
So I think Mueller needs to wrap it up if this report does in fact nail Comey.
And then I know a number of congressional Republicans have been trying to get some documents from the Department of Justice, and it looks like Rod Rosenstein and company are slow walking this stuff for whatever reason. You're not getting what you need.
Rosenstein needs to recuse himself from this. His conduct is at issue with the FISA and with all this stuff. And so he can't be a judge in his own case. And the reports that he may have been threatening people in the Congress to use his authority, subpoena power. So we're investigating them for potentially misusing that. And then when we're trying to investigate, you're then threatening to misuse it some more? Give me a break.
And what he was complaining to members of the Intel Committee about was, how dare you ask me to put, or how dare you make a request in writing? And why would I have to respond in writing? Is that because he doesn't want a paper trail?
I think it's just bureaucratic arrogance. I mean, they've been so arrogant about this. When they redact things and don't let the American people see the truth on some of this stuff, there's no basis for a lot of these redactions, yet they do it. They don't believe the American people have a right to conduct oversight over their activities. That is wrong.
And you have confidence that once the Mueller probe comes out, once we see the IG reports, we'll know what happened?
I think we'll have a good sense, but we're still digging for more stuff. Remember, the IG's not going to get into the whole spying on Trump's campaign, all the collusion investigation. There are huge questions with all of that we want answers to.
All right, very good. Ron DeSantis running for governor of the great state of Florida. Ron, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
All right. So a busy day here at the park. Ainsley, Brian, and Todd, and things are going to get started 7:05 this evening.
All right. Thank you so much, Steve. Well, moments ago, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo wrapping up a news conference in China, and we are live in Beijing with what he said.
Plus, they serve up ribs, pulled pork, and more. But of course, with the side of patriotism.
Yes.
We are cooking with our friends at Mission Barbecue. Do not go anywhere on this very special flag.
Will our vegetarian Jillian eat any of it?
Said the question.
Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Let's get it started.
Good morning. We are back with a Fox News alert. A terror attack foiled in Germany. Prosecutors say a Tunisian man made the deadly poison ricin and was plotting a biological weapon attack somewhere in Germany. Exposure to ricin causes organ failure and could kill a person within 48 hours. Investigators say he bought the ingredients online. Right now, there's no evidence he's connected to a terror organization. A community is outraged over a summer reading list considered by some people to be anti-police. 2 of the 4 books recommended for students taking a high school English course are focused on racism and police brutality. The school in Charleston, South Carolina, is now reviewing the material. President Trump slamming Democratic Senator Claire McCaskill for using a private plane on what was billed as an RV tour. The president tweeting, quote, Senator Claire McCaskill of the great state of Missouri flew around in a luxurious private jet during her RV tour of the state. RVs are not for her. People are really upset. So phony. Josh Hawley should win big and has my full endorsement. Those comments coming in response to a report in the Washington Free Beacon, which McCaskill says is riddled with inaccuracies. Todd?
Thank you. Turning now to a Fox News alert. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo arriving in China overnight, briefing officials on the Singapore summit.
Wow, this trip comes on the heels of meetings with his Japanese and South Korean counterpart.
Rich Edson is live in Beijing with the latest for us. Rich?
Hello, a real aggressive trip here for the Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo. He is soon going to meet with Chinese President Xi Jinping in just a short time here at the Chinese Foreign Ministry. He's also been meeting with other top officials from the Chinese government here, including their foreign minister. The secretary says that China has committed to maintaining sanctions against North Korea until Kim Jong-un fully surrenders his nuclear program.
China has reaffirmed its commitment to honoring the UN Security Council resolutions. But we have made very clear that the sanctions and the economic relief that North Korea will receive will only happen after the full denuclearization, the complete denuclearization of North Korea.
Secretary Pompeo began his day in Seoul. He was meeting with top officials from the South Korean and Japanese governments. There, Pompeo addressed criticism for the administration agreeing to suspend joint military exercises with South Korea. To that, the secretary says that if North Korea stops negotiating in good faith, the United States and South Korea would then resume those military exercises. The secretary also says he'll likely continue discussions with North Korean counterparts next week, though we have no insight as to who exactly will meet for the U.S. and North Korea. Part of those discussions, according to the secretary, is learning the size and scope of North Korea's program. The secretary says that the United States has a reasonable insight and intelligence into what North Korea has, but part of this exchange is to figure out what exactly they have. Back to you.
Wow. Rich Edson staying on the road because he lives on the road. Rich Edson, thanks so much. Now to China, and who knows, they're going to end up in North Korea and maybe some big news.
We'll see. 48 minutes after the top of the hour, they serve up ribs and pulled pork and more with a side of patriotism. Janice is out there with them. They're cooking with friends with Mission Barbecue coming up next.
But first, the mission of Sandra and Bill is to work for 3 hours all week. They've been doing an incredible job with a brand new studio. Sandra, is this going to be a live show or is it taped?
It is live, and it is a split show, Brian Kilmeade. He's out at Shinnecock Hills hosting from the U.S.
Really?
Open.
Nice.
So look forward to the next 3 hours. I mean, tough assignment for Hemmer, right? Can you imagine? All right, well, coming up, we've got a bunch of live events to look for, including a meeting with Mike Pompeo and the Chinese president. Speaker of the House Paul Ryan expected to hold his weekly news conference. And we await the highly anticipated Inspector General's report. It could be out just a short time from now. We've got Jonathan Swan, Alan Dershowitz, Jason Chaffetz, Judge Napolitano all on deck to react to that. Plus, my co-host, Bill Hemmer, as I mentioned, he will be live from the U.S. Open at Shinnecock Hills. We will see you live at the top of the hour. See you in a bit.
All right, they're known for serving up patriotism alongside their delicious food right here.
Every day at noon, this is awesome. The restaurant, they play the national anthem at one of your restaurants, right?
At all of our restaurants. Every day because we can. And today they're here cooking for us, cooking with friends. Bill Krause, Steve Newton, the founders of Mission Barbecue. Gentlemen, thank you for being here. And you guys aren't just serving up really good food, you are serving up patriotism.
The story of Mission Barbecue is a couple of best friends, love of barbecue, but far more importantly, we just love our country. We just wanted to build a business that had purpose, that had meaning, it had significance. We opened our first one in Glen Burnie, Maryland on September 11, 2011. And damn right we did that intentionally. Intentionally that 10 years after the world changed, as we knew it, we're going to try and change it back. We're going to try and remind people how fortunate we are to live in this great country. And what makes this country great are our heroes.
Now, Steve, you believe any of that?
Oh, every bit of it.
Absolutely.
Every bit of it.
And yet,
and
literally,
the food's pretty good, too.
As you mentioned, the best 2 minutes every day at every Mission Barbecue is at 12 noon. When we shut our kitchens down, everything comes to a halt. We make an announcement. We play the national anthem because we can.
How did you decide to open these restaurants together?
Well, we love our country, and we're humbled by our heroes. And what's never lost on us is we feel like we get this really easy job. We get to just serve food and say thanks to these wonderful folks that are willing to do so much for all of us.
How many restaurants do you have?
We have 65 locations now across 13 states, coming soon now to the state of Connecticut, the state of Michigan, as well as the great state of Wisconsin.
And I can attest that this barbecue is delicious.
Hey, Jillian, who should we bring in right now?
Oh, I don't know. We should bring in Elaine Rogers from the USO. Come on. How are you?
Right,
Doing great.
Is there a presentation?
Knowing the mission of Mission Barbecue is to serve, honor, and thank our heroes. In serving, we just try and do our part by giving back. through the hard work of our teammates, the wonderful support of our customers, the sale of our American Heroes Cups, we're proud to be here today to donate a check to the USO in the amount of $914,504.
I'm taking this right now. Oh my God, I didn't know what the amount was.
To endorse?
Yes,
Almost $1 million.
Thank you so much.
That's amazing.
You know, they do so much. They are our force behind the USO forces. And this is so exciting because, you know, Father's Day is coming up. So on Sunday at BWI Airport, before our troops get on the plane and leave the United States of America, the last thing we're doing for them is Mission Barbecue is coming and serving lunch to them as they get on the plane.
That's right.
And you know what? The first thing we're doing now, after we go to break, they're all getting some of this. These guys behind us.
We are proud and humbled at Mission Barbecue to be able to serve organizations like the USO, and most importantly, these heroes, their families, their friends. We just get to provide the food and say thanks.
More Fox and Friends moments away.
Are you ready to eat?
Bill and Steve, great job. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Oh my God.
That's awesome.